Hi, I'm Yi Qingwu, and you can call me Ethan. I'm from University of Pennsylvania, and I'm original from China. So the place I came from is actually not as hot as here. And then when I landed, I find it's super hot, and I want to jump into the water immediately. And because I heard about Trinity River, so I'm thinking like, is it possible to swim in the river? And then I just find, oh shit, it's not so good, because the great Dallas people actually built a levee system to protect it from outside and actually isolate the water from the residential area. But this also isolates the way people can get in touch of water. But since the Trinity Forest is actually a big floodplain, we calculate how much water it holds, and if we put it in Central Park, we find it will be 170 feet high. So that's a lot of water. But it's very typical for people to treat it as this, so they build levee to block it, and they build a highway and the railways to isolate it. So people want to protect themselves from water, and just look at this image and how can we fight against nature? So what I think and I propose is something different, to live with water and engage them into daily lives. And also look at the flood zone map. We find, although we think it's quite isolated, but it's actually in hydrological level, it's strongly connected with all the neighborhood and all the city area. And the Trinity Forest, you can say it's actually like a heart of the center, and it actually can reach out into the neighborhoods. And I think that's the missing linkage that is ignored by people. On the other level, like hydrological circle, the flood zone and the Trinity Forest also act as very critical roles as a sponge that absorbs the polluted water from neighborhood and the city and purify them, leave it to Trinity River. Although it's contributed a lot, but something left is a polluted environment, and all the trash is actually captured by the forest and the floodway, which make people think it's polluted. And then they think it's dangerous, so we isolated them. For decades of isolation, people start to ignore those places. So I'm thinking, like, what can we do to recover those blue arteries? So the first thing is to create water infrastructure to purify the water. And it's not only do those engineering stuff, but it should also use evaporation factor to cool down the environment. And also traffic infrastructure to connect forest and the people, but also create a migration corridor to introduce the birds and the species in the forest back to urban area. And also create a social infrastructure to program that space through a lot of specific gardens. And then overlay them together, we can find the floodway can be changed into a framework and a blue network of Dallas area. But the most important thing is not just build the system, it's how to change people's perception of the old image of the Trinity Forest is a wild, it's dangerous, it's chaotic places. So what I think we should do is to start with kids, because they accept knowledge faster and they are really curious about nature, about what happens in the Trinity Forest. So the site I select is at the north entrance of the forest, and it's actually connected by the Red Rock Creek, and a branch of the creek reach into the neighborhood. And there's something special for this because they have 7 elementary schools in that area. And they are all in a walking distance towards the floodway. So inspired by the story of Alice in Wonderland, which talk about Alice following the white rabbit and jump into the Wonderland, what I think is to create an Alice trail that in the waterland, so that kids can follow in the water, get into the Trinity Forest, and during the process, they not only understand the nature process and the function of Trinity Forest, but they can also experience how Alice actually discover, lost, and find its own identity. So as the system, I think the first thing we need to do is build a water infrastructure to purify and polish the water. Instead of just like build a very typical green infrastructure and just copy something from other places, I think those are like mono-function and not linked together. So what I propose is to change those infrastructure into playground and a classroom and link it by the story of Alice in Wonderland. And the other one is a trail system that actually connects the Trinity Forest with neighborhood, with their churches, and with their schools. The final one is a program which I create a series of gardens. For example, the Garden of Lost in Dream is a maze. Actually, represents the journey of lost, and the pool of tear is a reflective pool, and people can look at the other words in the water. But they are not just function as garden. They're also a part of big system that deal with water. So I overlay those 3 layers together, and it becomes the master plan. And I will walk you guys through the plan and talk about how actually kids can experience those things. So the first one is following water. When you get out of your home, I propose some bioswale so that people can actually follow it. Other than normal ones, what I want to do is to expose the water in those areas, and it becomes a water channel so that people can actually get in touch with water and have fun with that. And by creating 2 lines of street trees, the shadow will reduce the temperature and become comfortable for street life. So with those things, I think we can get rid of 1 line so that people can use bikes. So following the water, we went into a maze, and it's actually a system of boardwalk above the constructed wetland. And it will change based on different water level so that people can have different trails when it's exposed. And so even if it's dry or wet, people can still experience and play with it. So at the entrance of the maze, I plan to densify the forest to create a sense of enclosure, and then it will open suddenly it will open to represent the experience of rapid change in the story. And also, parents can stay at the lookout point while children will tracing each other in those trails. Then the not so polluted, the purified water will run into the habitat where I create 3 levels of observation system. So in the lowest area, it's actually rich into the water so that you can look at those species from its root, and represents how Alice actually getting tiny when it's bites or drink the water. And then there's another one, very high and like treetop walk. It actually represents how Alice look at the world when it becomes super big. Then it's come to the time garden, which I think I can capture some sediments. And in the process, the volume of water will change the shape of sedimentation area. And by using the dead trees, the trunk, I make a sediment machine to capture those sediments. Children will play inside it and get understand about how the sediment actually function and works. Then it will go to the pool of tear. It's actually a reflective pool and also retention basin. By walking around the bridge, people can look down and find that there's another world in the water. The destination of the journey will be the rabbit hole, which is the entrance of the Trinity Forest. And I propose to change the boring power tower into a rabbit shape so that it becomes a landmark to tell people there's something happens here. And under the bridge, they can work as a story talking places that old lady will talk about the history of Trinity Forest and also the fairy tales. And then people will realize that's the start point of the wonderland. So, and from this perspective, you can find I put Alice into that. That means I want to create a game called Alice Go, that we can actually catch Alice. And once you catch it, it will tell you some stories about the wonderland and also ecosystem and the knowledge about hydrology. So I think that's how we actually play with those knowledge and education projects. So that's it.
All right, so my name is Ishan, and I'm studying at UPenn with Ethan. The name of my project is called Foline, and we'll get into that as we go. I'm originally a New Yorker, and when I knew that I was going to come to Dallas, the only thing I knew about it was the Trinity River. The MVVA plant had just blown up, and it's like one rendering that they call it the panty dropper rendering that is just like sold, project sold. And that's what I really knew about the Dallas. And we were going to do the Trinity Forest, and I had no idea about what it was or what it was about. And the first week, I investigated the history of the forest, and I found that there was a landfill, odd use for a forest. And that's being replaced by a golf course, odd use for a forest. And then here at the center that we are, it was a landfill as well. I mean, we could argue that it's a missed opportunity because it's called the Trinity River Audubon Center and we're in the Trinity Forest. And we could sit here and argue at which one of these interventions, if any of them are the right operation for the forest. But the reality is that they're both cover-up operations. They both just take the garbage, cap it, and do something over it. I think we need to reveal the history and the traces. What I feel is lacking with the forest is that people can't engage with it. They have no tie to it because they don't know what it is. And we need a change in perspective. Right now, there's kind of there is what I feel an invisible wall between the forest and the city. This thing is going really fast, or I'm nervous. There's an invisible wall between the forest and the Trinity River. There's at the northern edge of the site near Ethan's site, there's a DART station that's called Lakeview Station, and it doesn't even acknowledge that it's on the edge of the Trinity Forest. There's 500 acres of junkyards around the forest, which is a questionable use of program around the forest. And the edge of the forest itself isn't inviting. That's the typical condition that you see. So in order to engage and reveal the forest, I think the forest has to break its boundary and go into the city of Dallas, and the city of Dallas has to come into the forest as well. This has to go beyond, I mean, a lot of investment is going into building trails and a network, but it has to go beyond that. It's not enough because you don't understand the immensity of the forest. It's 6,000 acres. It's marketed as the largest urban hardwood forest in in the country, and you can't experience that on a trail in an eye level condition. That led me to want to find a way to change the perspective. All around the States and the world, there's these projects that are leveraging old infrastructures and rail lines that have copycatted off the High Line, but they're all benefiting from the simple quality of being able to look down at something and experience a condition that you wouldn't have walking on the ground. In the High Line, you are able to see and be seen, and what's made the High Line truly successful is that it has these urban canyons where now the perspective is back on the structure. So what does the Trinity Forest need? Does it need another High Line? As I said, I'm from New York, and I'm kind of sick and tired of people saying that we could just copy and paste it. But what is the right and appropriate intervention for the Trinity Forest? Is it another icon? Is it another $182 million bridge or a $115 bridge that really isn't even an original thing? Calatrava took this thing from Italy, and you could see the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge was copied twice. He took this one, multiplied it by 2 because he couldn't get 2 Margaret Hunt Hill bridges, put them side by side, and $300 million later, we're marketing this as the icon of our city, something to look at, when historically, bridges were places to come and look at nature. And when the flood of 1908 happened, people came out to the bridge because it was a spectacle. So, I mean, why not have the spectacle of the forest? So, Trinity Forest, Operation Change Perspective. What does that mean? I took a step back and said, okay, well, I have to rethink the forest, and let me start by thinking about what would happen if the forest wasn't there. What is there? So we have these infrastructure lines that run on the edge, the southern edge of the site and straight through the forest, and we have these power lines that run through the forest as well. So can we think these ridiculous Dallas spaghetti highways that I'm tired of driving around as social gathering spaces? Can we rethink these power lines that sit in our cities and forests? Instead of just sitting there, could they, instead of moving power, could they create power? Could we invite the Texas Department of Transportation to market their star, which I've also seen everywhere, and get the government involved to start marketing in it and have a system that, as you're driving around, can change? And maybe these are solar panels that start to rotate and glisten in the light and start to create a linear experience. And we could have gondolas on them so that you could actually have a new vantage point of the forest and really appreciate it for what it is. Okay, so Trinity Forest Operation Perspective. I've rethought it. I want to create a line. So all right, fine. We create an elevated highway, an elevated corridor, walkable path that leverages the views of the forest, and we could tack on wetlands and trails and kayakers, and this could be a whole system that works cohesively together. So, okay, so that's the big idea. Now, where, why, and how? So I looked at the communities around the forest, and you could see that it's really, really fragmented. Each one of them has their own identity. We have Pemberton Hill on the east side, and it's unsafe. It's full of guns. Only 3.6% have a bachelor's degree. It's the crunkest place to be in Dallas. A guy, I read an article that said that if he wasn't strapped, he would be home. And then on the northern side, you have Deep Ellum and all these arts district that's blossoming, and they're not talking to each other. So what can I do to break that wall that's happening at the forest? And then just as the communities have been humanized, we've assigned the forest its own identity. We've said it's a garbage, it's a wasteland, it's abandoned, it's toxic. And then there's also this huge problem that a lot of people are forgetting with the emerald ash borer. It's this insect that's coming across the United States, and it's already killed 50 million ash trees. And if we look at the forest itself, if we lost our mixed ash and our ash population, we'd have a significant loss of our forest. And you can't understand that at an eye level. You have to be elevated to really see that and value what we have. And again, when we combine those infrastructure lines that run through the forest, how could I leverage the three of them together? So my biggest issue of finding a place to intervene is you have the arts district up there, you have these communities that are in poverty. Why not find, there's a existing power line, existing highway here and an existing power line there. Why not use that as a way to connect and pull the arts district down and try to find a way to create a meeting point for these two so that they can integrate? Art can be the solution for poverty-struck communities. So this is the proposed plan. And the other question I had was, okay, so you have this elevated corridor, but where do you touch down? And I found on the south end, there's a elementary school, and on the north end, we have 2 high schools. So this could be the place for these students to come and integrate on the line. Even though it's 3 miles long, I wanted to find a way to have a series of experiences through the line. So if we imagine them as different chunks, each one of them has their own identity and for a specific reason. The first one would be about exploring bird habitat, which would tie into birders and the young students in the elementary school. As you continue, we would have a building that's off this faux line where you could come and learn about the forest and that you could be educated on the deforestation process that's happening. Then in the pockets that we've lost trees, we can let them become meadow. We've preserved the forest as the forest, and it hasn't gotten us anywhere. We don't value it. Maybe we need to introduce something that's aesthetically pleasing to look at. And then as you continue, we could pull those ash trees and create a labyrinth of trees and connect the Bonton farm through the infrastructure power line corridor. And at the end, trying to pull that Deep Ellum Arts District, we could have an arts meandering segment. So I'm not going to design 3 miles of a corridor in a week, so I decided to design each one of these segments in a chunk. So the first one is the bird habitat exploration. And as you walk around, we could have these different structures that talk about birds, and the path itself can elevate so that you are experiencing it at different heights. One of the things is that we need to experience it vertically as well and have different strata to appreciate different things. And as a view, we could have classrooms up there where we could learn about birds. We could have that elevated path that lets you see things and value the forest at a different vantage point. Then as you continue, the forestry education building can be in section. It can zigzag through the structure and let you have different vantage points. And those ash trees, they could be like a maze on the faux line itself, but underneath, as a driver to engage with the faux line, we could have these tree trunks at different heights, which could relate to the depth of the tree root or something, and just educate the public and give them a curiosity for what's going on above there. As you continue, you would have the meadow stroll, and this could be a series of elevated prairie Texas grasses, which are also very valuable, and we're losing a significant amount of them. And in section, these can also start to wave so that you could be at eye level with those grasses and really see them at a new perspective and collect that water so that on the ground where we've lost those trees, we could have wet meadow species. Then as you continue the tree trunk labyrinth, we can elevate, we can be at different elevations and start to see the trunk and value. You know, as kids, we love climbing trees, and we kind of lose that as we grow up. Why not be able to bike and experience the different elevations and strata of that? And as we continue, when the faux line intersects the infrastructure corridor of the power lines, we can just keep the thin bike lanes so that you can really look down and see the grids of the farmland, and at the end have a place where you could overlook the farmland, and in section have a viewpoint of that. For the last intervention, I knew I wanted to find a way to integrate arts into the faux line. So what I wanted to do is find a way to socially try to engage the community. And we've thrown over 200,000 tires into the Trinity River. Right now, there's a company that's making somewhere $3 million to pull out tires. And I think that this could be a community engager. And instead of plant a tree, we could market plant a tire. And as the tree grows, this could be a social space where people could gather. And on the weekend in Deep Elm, it could be a place where people could sell art, people could sell their products. And instead of having a bland street that you don't want to walk on at noon, it could lead you all the way to the forest and have something, a destination. I think not having something to go to pull you to the forest is what is lacking. And once you get to the faux line, once you get to the Trinity Forest, the elevated part would have a series of these rooms that you wind across them. And in section, I mean, in perspective, we could have artwork, and it could be a big, crazy tire sculpture with a plaque that says, this is just 1% of the tires that we've pulled out this year. In conclusion, Texas has highways. It has ridiculous highways. The one cutting through, we just drove through it this morning to get here, the I-75, no, 45, sorry. It's six lanes wide. We have the infrastructure lines. Why not? And this has the unique condition, like the highway and the power lines exist everywhere, but rarely do you ever drive through a forest and you don't acknowledge it. You could be anywhere in the world. Why not have an experiential line with the different experiences that could really bring people to the forest and engage them? We don't have to build anything. We don't have to invest $300 million into the Trinity River. The Trinity Forest is what it is. I think it just needs a change in perspective.
Hello everyone, my name is Farana Ahmadi. I'm from Iran and I study Master of Landscape Architecture at UC Berkeley. And my project's name is, as you can see, Transformer Ribbon. In 2016, Dallas, as the ninth most populated city in the US, has become very diverse. And on the other hand, this huge, massive transportation system located in the city, and this kind of caused the lack of identity in the city. Although different people with different background live in Dallas, but it's demographically separated in the north and south. And Trinity Forest, as our focus site, is part of this gap. And I found it very interesting to how we can kind of invite people with different neighborhood to each other's neighborhood and create a real one city. And my focus site is close to Trinity River and downtown Dallas. And as you can see, this transition zone between this demographic separation. The significant characteristic of my site is isolation. So this, as you can see, there are two big barriers between Jopi, which is on the right, the barrier of just manage vacant wetlands from the forest, and this huge belt of industrial site and transportation from the rest of the city. So these are acting like in a cut in the city, and I try to fill them. And so I feel that by filling these gaps, the city and the forest will be reconciled and reconnected again. As I mentioned, my site called the Industrial and Cultural Zone, and this is the exact location in the forest. And I want to go through the layers, different layers of this neighborhood, because it's going to be important in my future planning. The first one is Joppa Preserve, is a 300-acre managed wetlands, which is a destination for migratory birds and people, photographers and explorers. The next layer, which is my focus of design and my thinking of how to find identity and culture, is the Joppa, is a historical neighborhood of the Dallas, which was ranked number 3rd as the best preserved neighborhood last year in Texas. And the people, although people are facing with problems like poverty and safety, they really love their neighborhood and they really care about it, and they're really proud of being the number 3rd in Texas. But on the other hand, they're really welcoming and want people to come to their neighborhood. And the next layer, which is next to the Joppa area, is this big rail yards of the Union Pacific, which is a big gap and disconnector of the Joppa from the rest of the city. And next to it, which is the second focus of my zone, is industrial zone, which I found it very interesting. Is kind of it is a combination of inactive and active mega infrastructure and building, and yeah, that I can make them improve. And the next layer is the complex of transportation, I-45 and the existing railroad and a high-speed rail to Houston, which is going to be elevated and kind of change the skyline of that area. And finally, after just complicated layers, we can see the urban zone, versatile neighborhood. So you can see this different separation of layers in the neighborhood, which have this gap between each of them. And my question is, what's the solution? And I'll try to kind of blend and mix these layers and weave them and create connective arteries, which these arteries will go through the flow to the neighborhoods and connect the city to the forest and reverse. So as you can see in this schematic section, this ribbon kind of starts from this productive industrial and create a productive, actually, industrial park. And next, it will go through this rail yard, which I propose to move this part of this active railroad under the ground and just remain the memory of the old rail yard. And then going through this way, it will go to the Joppa, which I was thinking about only improvement in housing and maybe farmer markets for income for people in future. And finally, Trinity Forest. And this map shows how this ribbon or arteries, how far they can extend to the neighborhood. What is important about these ribbons or arteries are that they are not just only specifically physical elements like furniture or anything. It tries to create memorable and usable landscape by mostly programming. It can be a plaza for a gathering, a roof structure, bike trails, farmer markets, or installation of furniture, or even lighting. So what is this ribbon going to be exactly in cultural landscape of Joppa? These are specific assets in the Joppa, which I'll go through this in section. So as a start, it will create housing for people, for low-income people in Joppa, based on their own culture and traditional architecture, and based on mostly Habitat for Humanity program. And then this line can go through this, create pedestrian-friendly streets and create roof, and then becomes and transform to a bike trail, and then become a traditional market. What is important about this ribbon is that it deform and transform every time, so that's why I called it transformer ribbon. This is the focused location of this, and as you can see, it started from being a roof, it becomes a bike trail, and then go through this housing that I propose as one for improvement, and create a vivid and active farmer market with very light roof structure. And on its way, it can be crazy and just become a slide for children as a playground. So instead of having this vacant, empty perspective of Joppy, why not having the active neighborhood, which kind of invite other people from other neighborhoods to the farmer markets, and in this way, the roof kind of lead people from their neighborhood to this farmer market. The other part of the Joppy is close, as I mentioned, is close to the rail yard, and this particular assets are going to happen in the journey of the ribbon. So the location will be this way. And as I mentioned, I'm going to move the rail yard underground, so this ribbon will create plazas and platforms with people with shading, which is very necessarily in the hot climate of Dallas, and then it will go again down and create some furniture and connect this old rail yard to the Joppy. So again, instead of having this separation, I will present a vibrant plaza with furniture and roof, and even the memory and the train itself can be this destination and part of this ribbon for people to go and just explore, and as a playground for children. And the second part is industrial landscape, and this particular assets will be the part of the ribbon in that area. For any of you who are not very familiar with the post-industrial landscape architecture, one of their important mottos is to specific architecture for specific uses does not need to be built, and they instead of making and creating, new buildings, it just needs to be reprogrammed, re-energized, reconnect, and reconfigured. So, as in my site, I identified these blocks for re-energizing, reconfiguring, and reconnecting, and these blocks specifically for reprogramming and creating maybe a railroad museum or a local timber and furniture factory. And why timber and furniture factory? Because as we mentioned, as Guy mentioned, that Trinity Forest is old, and one of the planting strategy is to cut some of the trees and planting with new generation of the trees. So maybe using that timbers can create job for low income people in Joppy. So the ribbon starts from being a bike trail into the flower lands and just the canopy of the trees all the way through this open space and closed space in the industrial part, and then maybe installation and the roof. As the location is here, you can see this ribbon stop in specific part in the open space in this particular industrial part, and then kind of dance through the building and lead people to go and explore inside this industrial buildings. So instead of having this, old and vacant but beautiful architecture and landscape, why not having this vibrant and active landscape, which their journey kind of start from the entrance entrance over there, that people can come through this red line and see this huge red structure, and then follow the canopy row of the trees, and then this big big yellow flower land, and then go through all the way this canopy of trees, and finally see the beautiful pool. And on their journey, they can go and, as I said, go to the building and watch this view from the green roofs that I propose, or going to the bridges. And you know, these buildings are themselves like a big maze, so I just need to be reprogrammed and redesigned to invite people to be in there. And as this beautiful, I personally think beautiful, but empty perspective can convert into this vibrant and active landscape, which people from all different neighborhoods, not only Joppy, can come and explore. And even at nights, it can be part of the nightlife in Joppy with just lighting. And as a final destination and final piece of this ribbon, the Trinity Forest, which is the most important part of this program, which can be a watching area or a plaza gathering, bike trails or furniture. So this ribbon dances through all the way of the wetlands, top of it, and goes through the forest. And it can be kind of become again crazy and create some formal bridges. And instead of having this inactive wetlands, which are a part of our nature, and we really want to spend time in it, but maybe we really want, but we can't. So why not have this perspective with bridges, and not only for people of Joppy having this housing close to this beautiful perspective, for other people to come there and explore the nature and see the migratory birds or kayaking or any other activities. So as this whole plan, I really think that by this idea of this ribbon, I try to leverage the linkage between the neighborhood, the forest, but in a way not to have any damage to this neighborhood, and by preserving their culture and historical values. So if you're looking for identity, just follow the ribbon. Thank you.
All right, so everyone knows I'm Jenny. I go by Jenny, and I'm from Taiwan, studying at Harvard right now. So, move on to my project. So the title of my project is Reminiscing Remnants. And it's actually based on these two words that speak true to the core of my concept, focusing on histories and perceptions. So reminisce, indulge in enjoyable recollection of past events. Remnant, a small remaining quantity of something. But before I jump into the concept of my project, I would like to share a little story of myself. So this past semester, I was working with Harvard University Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology. And within the museum itself, there's an exhibition dedicated to the history of Harvard campus. And it was curated by undergraduate students who study archaeology. So basically, they went to this dump site on the campus, and then they dig out all these trash, pipes and glass bottles. And what's amazing about this is that they speak true about what kind of life that was before at Harvard, and it's also creating these linkages between students from the present with the students from the past. So it also makes me curious about, well, we value so much about the trash from the past, but how about our relationship with the trash from present? And if we look at the landfill right now, on average, we dump away 5 pounds of trash every day, every person, and amounting to about 300 million tons of trash in the US alone per year. And all of them just went into this landfill, and then we cover our eyes, we don't see them, we don't care about them. And then what's more, when they reach their maximum capacity and then they have to be closed off, then what do we do with the surface? Well, we just put golf course, habitat restoration, and potentially we might use it for a renewable energy source. But all of these operations basically cover up our histories. And quite surprisingly, I just realized that in the southern part of the Trinity Forest, where the McComas Bluff landfill is located, we also have the 2 previous landfills, the Byron Nelson PGA Golf Course and also the Audubon Center. And it's amazing that 3 landfills actually occurred in the southern part of Trinity Forest. And they all have the 3 operations that I just mentioned about. For McComas Bluff landfill, it's going to be closed in 2042, and after that, they just signed a lease to a local company that work with capturing biomethane gas for renewable energy. and that's going to be used for 30 years. But then we also heard that there might be a potential for burning trash to generate energy. And for the Byron Nelson PGA Golf Course, was built on the landfill, but then at the same time, it's having more pressure from development in the northern part because you're going to accommodate a lot of visitors during the event. And closer to, I'm going to use this pointer here. Closer to the golf course, we have the Big String area, which is very important historically and ecologically because it supports one of the few remnants of blackland prairie, which is so dear to Texas' native ecosystem. And because it existed in isolation and fragmentation, then any development that is detrimental to this vulnerable ecosystem would eventually destroy it over time. And the next one is that the Big Spring is also very important for pollinators, and it's actually a nectar corridor for these pollinators. And we all know now that in the US, we are facing this pollinator crisis. And even the White House just said they urged the need for federal government and agencies together to create a task force that help strategize how we can promote the health of pollinators. And also even last month, our Mayor Rawlings also issued this proclamation of this National Pollinator Week as a way to engage citizens in the conservation efforts. So that's why the Trinity River Audubon Center, where we are now, is very important because it serves as an important educational facility, helping kids and parents to understand the importance of ecosystem. And also for the Grow South initiative by the city of Dallas, they want to create this education corridor, which also involve the landfill. So I was wondering how we can create this hyper landscape on this landfill in a way that we can fulfill the needs for both gas production, any form of renewable energy, and also for education and recreation. But if we look at the typical conventional section for a landfill reclamation project, usually they will have these layers, and definitely the top layers, you would plan with some plant species for habitat restoration, and you have this tube for tapping for biogas. But all of them just render trash as something invisible, that we don't want to see them. We just beautify the contaminated surface condition, pretend nothing has happened before. What about now is that they're gonna dug out trash and burn them. So in a way that will we be erasing our own history too? But if we don't, if we still have some remnants from these trash, what can we do with them? It's gonna create these pockets that potentially we can shape something out of it for creating some interesting space for people to explore. So this kind of leads to my plan about how I envision this landfill can be. So as you can see, it has a lot of textures and colors planted with a lot of pollinator-friendly plants as a way to revitalize our pollinator. And the landforms themselves are shaped in a way that you have the openings, and you also have the enclosure. You also have indoor and outdoor spaces throughout the whole site. So now the most exciting part, let's take a journey. Okay. So I will start with these two large mounds here. So we'll come indoor into this large mound, and then we'll come up here and have a view of the city of Dallas, which is up there. And then we'll go down again through under the ground and go to a waterfall area. Okay. So this is our first stop by the canvas, which is shaped in a natural way that mimicking the geological formation. And I try to imagine this space as something that's enclosed and secluded with a beam of light coming down, and the trash are trapped in these glass display. So for me, I was very overwhelmed by the amount of trash I would produce, and also overwhelmed by the amount of technology that go into producing this trash. So in a way that the concept is like, it's about deposition, whether it's a deposition about trash, or it's relevant technology, or it's like a literal deposition of human history. And the next one, when we go up there, we have this view of the city of Dallas at a backdrop. And because something interesting about the landfill site, it's the highest point within the forest because it's protected by the floodplain and protected by the levee. And right now, the elevation change is about 200 feet, and then we might speculate it to increase to maybe 400 feet in future. And it's just quite amazing that what can we do with that elevation change. So what I want to do is try to create this equal dialogue between the city and the landfill, because in the past, we just viewed this landfill as something that we don't care. It's at the back of our city, but now I want to create this equal dialogue between the landfill and the city. And now you can enjoy the view, but you can also bike or jog around and watch some birds. And if you're too hot because you expose to the sunlight too much, you can come down and have this cool and refreshing air, more intimate space. And then as you move forward even further, you will come into this giant, large artificial waterfall that will cool you down. And most of the water is collected from the rainfall that we have from Dallas, and they'll get purified by Ethan's waterland, and they'll all come here, and we can also have this spectacle here. And it also offers another interesting way of viewing wildlife. So we know that Dallas is in the central flyway for migratory birds, and usually when we do bird watching, we either at the same elevation where we are also up, looking from up to down. Well, I want to create this new vantage point where you observe wildlife from bottom to top. So it's kind of like a shift in power dynamics between human and nature. And the next one, let's take a kayak ride. So we exit from the waterfall, and now we're taking a kayak ride and then observing these two man-made islands, and then we move forward. So this is my favorite part, because with the help from Donnie, I looked into the boat cemetery in the forest, and it actually remains as a mystery because no one knows why people dump so many boats over there. So I tried to reconstruct these boat cemeteries in this area as a way to stimulate people's curiosity about the forest and something that we normally don't see. And the landform itself is shaped in mimicking the geological formation again, because they create very interesting surface conditions where you offer different gradients of moisture and light conditions that can help facilitate recolonization of different plant species. And also these trash again are in the glass display. They sort of reminds me of those, bulletin boards and screens in at the Times Square in New York City advertising for products or services. So as you move forward, you're enough with all the chaos, then you come to this open water area where you enjoy some moment of serenity, and then you can have some bird watching. And if you don't like kayaking because you're afraid of water, you can still have other way of interacting with water by walking onto this overhanging bridge. Okay, enough with water. Well, actually, we're going to have more water. So we will enter this glass dome here, and then we'll loop around and end up here. And so this is a glass dome with a giant deep pool in the middle. So all the ground materials that got dug up were used to build those two man-made islands. And what this is for is that it creates a new kind of educational facility or laboratory as a way to study how these physical remains, the trash, like the cars from the junkyards, or tires that got pulled out from the Trinity River, or even the boats, how they can offer new kind of habitats for certain species. So this is like a testing ground. And we'll end up here in this open meadow area where you are amazed by the amount of glowing pink butterflies. Oops, sorry. And you're also amazed by these glass tubes. They're filled with trash. And they kind of mimicking the lake course that scientists usually take from the for sampling sediment from the lake, because they capture the strata of time and geological formation. So in a way that they kind of register what was there before. So this is before the trash got digged up for the biomethane production. So as a way, it's kind of act like a like a place for reminding you that trash is still here. But so all of the design strategies speak a lot about how we unveil the past and also engage with the present, but also imagine what can be happen in the future. And what can happen in the future is that if we start to view this landfill as something, as not something passive or negative, but something that is act like a powerhouse for regenerating the forest, because we know a lot about how this forest is all even age and then it's having this potentially suffer from the outbreaks from the emerald ash borer. So eventually it will create some pockets of openings where the powerhouse can start to regenerate them through the pollination. And eventually they will start forming these large networks of infrastructure for facilitating pollination throughout Dallas and the whole region. So maybe next time when you think about Dallas, it's not just the banal image of Dallas as like with the spaghetti of highways, but more like a pioneer in establishing a closer, intimate connection with nature, especially for pollination. And one last thing, just to refer back to Ethan's idea about Pokemon Go. If you don't like any of my ideas, you can still come here and play Pokemon Go.